everyone. I'll give you a minute or two to join me. Hopefully you can hear the birds singing away in the background. Hi Jenny. Let's give you guys a couple of moments just to join me. Come and say hello. You can hear the birds. Hopefully I'm here in Richmond Park in southwest London. So I thought I'd take you outside, out of your maybe office space or your desk space, and bring you a little bit of nature here. So thank you for joining. As you're joining, it's just always really interesting to know kind of where you are in the world, and if you like walking, please let me know. It'd be great to hear from some fellow walkers. I think many of us don't have much of a choice at the moment, do we, but to get out. Someone loves Richmond Park, great, thanks Fitz W11. Everyone loves to get out on their daily walks at the moment, and you know, with particularly here in the UK, right, in terms of things changing and hopefully being let out over the summer, particularly over the next few months, we'll definitely still be making the most of either walking on your own or walking with another person. Battersea, yeah, not too far away. So if, like me, it was freezing cold this morning and now it's brightening up, so it's a little bit warmer. I might be able to drop the scarf and the hat soon, which come with me absolutely everywhere. So thank you for saying hi. For those who are just joining, say hi if you want to. But today I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background about myself, about what I do as a walking therapist, and then give you some kind of top tips around what you could do for yourself, and some different things to think about as you get out walking. So I don't know if you've heard of walking therapy before. It's something I've been doing for the last 3 years. And essentially, you know, I'm a therapist. Normally, you'd know therapists who are based in a box in a room that you would come to talk through stuff that's going on for you. And again, in particular right now, I think a lot of us could welcome a space to come to actually offload. And for me, it's something really important to be out in nature and to connect with nature. And I find that when we get outside, we have a very different conversation. So you do connect with the trees and the birds and the plants, and also it kind of opens something up inside. And I often hear people say like they have a very different conversation when they're talking to, you know, somebody in a car. So when you sit alongside somebody, you tend to, because you're not looking at them, you tend to often be much more open. Or when you go out with a friend with a dog, you probably have a very similar experience. And so that's the beauty of being outside in nature and walking with others, and in particularly in therapy, just being able to really tap into where you're walking and how you're walking, and there's always something in how we walk, and I just want to touch on that. So hi Matthew, thanks for joining. In that as we walk, there is it's very telling about kind of how we hold ourselves. So often I'll really notice when somebody comes to walk alongside me, how they're walking. Are they walking intentionally and very quickly? So they're really wanting to get to an end point, and they want to get it over and done with. So you know yourselves about whether you are walking kind of with everything tight and constricted, and almost it'd be really important about kind of where you're going. You need to know where you're going. And really, even at the moment, right, none of us really know where we're going, and we're really having to trust the uncertainty of what the world is throwing up for us, and we need to be able to kind of sit in that uncertainty. And some of that is to kind of just drop off and not put the pressure on ourselves. So when you actually slow down and walk slowly, you get to experience life in a different way. You get to observe things around you in a different way. So I often I get really interested in talking to cyclists and runners about, you know, how they use their exercise. And very often it can be for meditation and for kind of for fitness as well, and kind of almost like tuning out of, and a reason, I guess, to get out of whatever's going on for them, getting out of the house, and just maybe kind of pushing all that energy away and exhausting themselves, so that sometimes it can be used so that you don't need to feel the emotions, whereas when we're walking there's almost no escape, right? So you're walking slowly and the emotions in particular are kind of surfacing up. So for me it's a really important time to just allow the emotions kind of to come to us, and see what surfaces, and when we're so busy, running around, whether it's with the kids, doing homeschooling, whether you're running around running a business, just going about your everyday thing. If you're keeping relentlessly busy, then you don't actually take the time to really reflect on what is going on in your body and connect into the emotions. So our bodies are our best indicator of how we're really feeling, and so our head can play a lot of monkey games on us and tell us different stories, but if you actually tune into what's going on physically in your body, then you get to listen to, let's say, a different narrative. So whether you're having kind of regular headaches, whether you're not able to sleep at night, whether you find yourself distracted and kind of tuning out of conversations, whether maybe kind of finding certain topics really awkward and running away from them. You might have bad back pains, and often back is associated with support. So if you're not necessarily feeling supported in the world, it can show up in your back. And kind of relating back into that walking and how we walk. If you actually observe what's going on for you, are you on your tiptoes and you're walking almost leaning into the world, or are you holding yourself back and walking really on your heels? So what does that mean for you in terms of how you approach life? So it's a really good time to kind of get curious about physically, what's showing up in your body, how do you walk, how do you experience life, and does that relate? And actually one of the best ways sometimes is to ask somebody else. So ask a friend or a family member and say, look, what do you notice about the way I walk? And it's really telling. I had a friend the other day who asked her husband, and she thought that she was quite relaxed and open to life in that sense. And he said, well, no, actually you walk like you're really fierce and intense, and that's how you take on life. So it's really interesting to reflect back to how you think you walk and how others walk. So physically, in Chinese medicine, it's really important about kind of using all four limbs. And so you look at kind of Qigong and other exercises that is often seen in the East, and we are moving our full body. So we're moving our arms and legs, and that's one of the benefits with walking. It really kind of connects with our systems and with our internal systems in particular, and enables greater blood flow around the body, more blood flow to the brain. So obviously this has a really connected, I guess almost connected to the solutions of some of the chronic illnesses that are showing up. So depression, anxiety, disease and sicknesses where we're generally in our mind, and we kind of run ourselves to a certain frenzy and we're overthinking things. And so for the benefit of walking, hi Lucy, it was funny with the Instagram names, you never know what actual people's names are. Dalsang and Thai Garden Solutions. Thanks for joining. Ask any questions as I go along. Feel free to just pop any in the chat and see if I can answer them. Going back to the four limbs, and so making sure that we get everything flowing around our systems, and so it calms down the nervous system, and it calms down the brain as well. So you'll often hear, and actually there's a lot more stories coming out around how people have emotionally calmed down their thinking brain, and so when they go out for walks, just being able to slowly kind of connect with themselves, and to stop the monkey brain going crazy. So it's always an amazing opportunity for that. There's also there's lots of evidence around creativity. So, if you're not necessarily thinking about it as for physical, mental benefit, if you're also thinking, well, actually, I'm struggling to come up with ideas around writing a book or starting a new business or doing something different for yourself, then actually it's also takes your brain to a different place. So when we're out in nature, we're looking at things differently, and when you're out walking, you're looking at things differently. So you're changing the brain patterns, which enables different creativity to kind of get pumped in, and you'll see, a bit like with meditation sometimes, that actually some of the best ideas that you'll get will actually come from when you're out walking. So a great time to kind of take your pen and paper with you and just see what shows up. So for me, just some of the ideas around different kind of walks that you could do and different things you can do whilst you're out walking. So I launched a program called 7-Day Soulwalking to Inner Peace. And this program, it's a guided program over 7 days. It enables you to look at kind of awareness, intention, surrender, flow, and really kind of look inside and understand for yourself kind of really what's going on for you. And within that, there's lots of different tasks and things that you can do on your walk. So I just wanted to bring a couple of those to light. So one is to go out in the evening. So for me, I come into Richmond Park on an evening when it's dark, and there's something quite beautiful about being in here and seeing the stars, and then really kind of connecting to something that's kind of bigger than us. It's always an incredible opportunity for me to quieten my own mind and to look at the stars and appreciate that actually, as a human being on Earth, Michael Singer once said, who wrote Untethered Soul, if you're familiar with that, it said, we're like a planet just spinning around in the middle of nowhere. And it certainly feels like that when you are in somewhere that's really still and you can see whether it's the moon or the stars, and just look up and think about, am I really going to get myself worked up about an argument you've had with somebody, or something that feels unsettling or you feel rubbish about, and then as you're sitting looking at the stars, think it is, ask yourself a question about whether that serves you or not, and actually in the grand scheme of things, is it that important? So it's a real leveler in terms of just, I guess, connecting back to yourself and to something else. So going out at night in the dark, where it's obviously a little bit, where it's safe. So here in the park is a great place I can come to kind of at night. There's very few people here, and it certainly feels nourishing for me. So another opportunity is I call it the path of life. So when you go walking, see if you can find somewhere which kind of almost either a river or a river or kind of an open wooded area. And stand there and see kind of what obstacles are in your way. So it could be trees. Hi, Steph. It could be trees, it could be boulders, it could be anything that feels like they're in the way. And as you stand there, observe and look at them and think, okay, imagine they are obstacles within your life, and what would the significance of those be? So it might well be that you see, I can actually see right behind me is a deer. So what does the deer represent? Does that represent somebody in my life? Does it represent something about money? Does it represent something about a business idea? And look at where you see those kind of obstacles, and then get curious about what they might mean. So if something is literally right in front of you, and you can't almost see past it, what would that represent that's going on in your life at the moment? So we're kind of looking at path of flow. We're looking at what feels like the easiest path at the moment that we can take. And sometimes things surprise you, so you might not necessarily have thought it, but in the unconscious mind it's like popped in there, and it's creating something that feels like a bit of a blockage maybe in your life. So it's a perfect time to just sit and observe it and relate things to different things in your life. And then from there, you start to kind of ask, well, what can I do to move that on? So let's say one is your bank balance. It needs to be addressed, and rather than trying to ignore it and put it in the background, then what is it that you need to do about your financial situation? Is it that you need to clear up some money that you owe others? Do you need to ask somebody for the money they haven't yet given you? Do you need to invoice somebody? Do you really need to lift up the drains and kind of understand what money's coming in and out? Is it something that you normally ignore? Because these things actually cause a huge amount of stress in our bodies, and it's only when we really get truthful about what's showing up in our lives and what's going on, and owning what's going on, and trying to do something about it, that we can kind of move the energy on, so we can start flowing again and go back to that flowing, much more peaceful energy. So that's another thing that you could look to do when you're out on your walk. And then one of my favourites is, and sometimes people think it's a little bit weird, but I think the best thing to do is to kind of look at our life and look at death. So, we are confronted by, people dying around us and all over the media. We're hearing about, obviously, the deaths through COVID. So it is prominent, but some people might actually shy away from it. But actually, when we look at death, we then appreciate life, which I think is really what's going on for many of us. And then we can make different decisions about how we really want to live our lives. So in order to do that, sometimes we need to go to that end point. And one way you can do that is to go to somewhere either that you can imagine your ashes being sprayed, or to somewhere, maybe a memorial bench that you can imagine being created on your behalf after you've gone, or to a crematorium or graveyard. So when we walk into a graveyard, I don't know about you, but I'm really often caught kind of looking around and reading headstones and just getting a feel of what that person might be like. Are they a mother, father, daughter? Whose lives have they impacted? How long did they live? Who were they? And so ask yourself what you would like to see on your gravestone. Hi, Jacqueline. You've probably come in at a time where you're thinking, what's she talking about, gravestones? And I'm just asking people to consider, when you go walking, an amazing way to really reflect back on our lives is to look at what we want to be remembered for. So it's not from a place of disconnection that it's all about pleasing others and being remembered for how they want us to be remembered, but more just what kind of impact do you want on people around you. And I don't know about you, but I've felt that hugely over the last 11 months is, what is the impact that I want to leave on my friends and family and the world around me? So what would you go to the graveyard, look at some gravestones, and then just take a moment to write down what you would like, if it was your headstone or your bench memorial, or even maybe what's read out at your ashes spreading. Is it a poem? What is it that you would love to be remembered for? So that's another fabulous thing to consider. So it might take you on a slightly different walk. Maybe you were heading to the park and now you're heading off to the crematorium, but that's a great way to go and experience something different. And then another way to experience something different is to take a different route. So maybe you go to the same place every day, maybe you go for the same amount of time, and when we do this, we actually kind of almost go back into this unconscious patterning. And I once went to an amazing talk by a Harvard lecturer who talked about kind of the ancient Asians in terms of Chinese, and how family would come together. So you would have this grandfather talking to the grandson, and you'd have all these different conversations of people talking at different generations and sharing their wisdom and different perspective on the world. So this is all about the perspective that we have, and if we keep repeating the same thing, then we very rarely get a different viewpoint or a different perspective. So if you take your walk, go somewhere different that maybe you've never gone before, so you could map it out the night before, get your map out and draw somewhere that you might fancy going, or that you've never been. I'm sure there's roads even in your local neighbourhood that you've never walked down, even if it's a dead end or a cul-de-sac. Just walk down it. We've got time. Go down it, come back, and write, and just observe what you see differently. So maybe you notice different houses, maybe you get to meet different people that you've never connected with before, and just see how that walk feels. Did you feel invigorated after the walk? Did it feel like it's longer? Often when we go walking and we know our route, suddenly the time's gone, right? And you're like, oh, I've been out for an hour and it felt like 10 minutes. And then when we go somewhere new, I don't know about you, but for me, time kind of expands, and suddenly I'm like, oh, that's actually like, I feel like I've been out for 5 minutes and it's been like 10 hours, as an example. And then connect with people. So many of us, we're kind of like, it's quite weird with the mask situation, right? You're not able to necessarily, you can only see people's eyes, and you're trying to read their energy from just their eyes. and sometimes you're smiling away behind the mask and people don't know whether you're smiling or not. So I think this is an amazing time to actually kind of feel into people's energies as you walk past them, but also to connect with new people. So, and in a really truthful, kind of open way, not just morning, hi, how are you, fine, the usual that many of us do. How can you have a different conversation that actually says, hey, I'm really struggling today, or, did you notice that the deer are in the park, they're over the other side of the park, something that really opens the conversation up. And if you can, it's hard for many of us, but if you can really kind of try and share kind of what your truth is that day, because I think our emotions at the moment in particular are really kind of on a roller coaster, aren't they? We're calling it kind of the coronavirus roller coaster. So they're going up and down, and for me every day, my emotions, I don't know what I'm going to get served up. So the first thing I do every morning is actually come for a walk, because I know before my brain gets involved in some kind of activity, it's like, come for a walk, quieten your mind down, and then allow some creativity and allow your day to unfold from there, rather than it being so prescriptive and so mapped out. Give yourselves the space, give yourself a moment of quiet time, and that's where the magic happens. That's where incredible conversations happen. It's where the things you least expect happen. If we fill our time from start to finish every day, and then you wonder why you're exhausted, or you wonder why nothing new's coming into your life, it's no surprise, because you keep repeating the same thing every day. So really try and just change it up. So going out, go for a walk in a different direction, connect with someone different. You never know what they might say or what you might hear differently, and that's really important. And actually talking about that, kind of like the deep listening. So as you get honest with somebody else, then they get honest with you. So when you when you say to somebody, I'm actually really struggling today, I'm going to just go and get a coffee and have some quiet time, you never know what comes back. Sometimes it opens up something. You're like, I've known this person like 20 years and they've never said that to me. We held an event last night called Deep Event, and we had guests come on and talk about, one lady, Helen Garlick, and Kenny Mamarella de Cruz. And both of them talked about kind of trauma in their lives. And Kenny in particular shared a poem. He was a child refugee from Uganda, and he shared this poem, and I've known him a few years and I've never heard him talk in this way. And it was really beautiful to witness his vulnerability and his story. And I think we all appreciate that when we hear it from others. And it's a reminder that we need to tap into our own stories. And all of you have stories, and amazing stories to share. And a lifetime of things that have happened, and how you feel, and the more you share it with others, the greater that connection is with others. So for me, that's one of the benefits of walking. Whenever you walk with somebody in particular, they always kind of have the most incredible conversations. So I've walked in places. I've walked to Everest Base Camp. I've walked half of the Camino, which is a pilgrimage walk across Spain from France to Santiago. In particular, that's an amazing place to go to just meander, walk, sleep, eat, have a glass of wine, and just meet incredible people from around the world who are doing something similar. And that's what I mean by like a really special connections. Within a day, you've heard somebody's full life story, and they've heard yours. And those bonds don't happen in many other ways, but I think in walking, it certainly enables that kind of glue to come together, and you really to connect with others. I've also walked in Peru, so kind of Colca Canyon, and down to Torres del Paine in Patagonia. So I've done the wildness of, in Patagonia, you pretty much kind of get blown to the ground, so some intense places. So I just wanted to share some books. I'm sitting in the park with these books, but some that have inspired me along the way. This one you might well know. It's Raina Wynn, who walked the Southwest Coastal Path even. I started some of that walk just before lockdown. So I walked along the windy coastal paths of North Devon. But this one's called The Salt Path, and then she has a follow-up book as well to that. This one, if you like the philosophy of walking, and kind of this guy's kind of walked all over. He's an explorer. His name's Erling Kaji. He's walked the North and South Pole. He's pretty much done all the explorations you can imagine, and he really taps into kind of, you know, the emotions behind walking, and what it's meant for him. I like the way he talks about just walking slow, and actually just, you know, taking in your full surroundings, no matter, even if you're in the middle of the Antarctica and you think you've only got white snow around you. He talks about the birds and the noises and the intensity of just even the silence and how incredible that is. So his is a fabulous book. And then the other one I recommend is Turn Right at Land's End by John Merrill. So when I was looking to do the coastal path of Great Britain, I found this guy. He walked the coastal path in 1974. Before social media, before anyone even knew, he would turn up to villages and there would suddenly be like 200 kids sitting there waiting for him to come in. And so his book is pretty much a day-by-day account of the British Isles coastal paths, and the people that he met along the way. And he's still walking. So he's in his mid-70s. He's now a minister, and he's walking every day still. I think he did 17 miles yesterday, I saw on Facebook. So good on you, John. Still going, still believing in the passion. And then a little one, which is my own one, so Soul Hub, the journal. And we've just got into stories from around the world, inspiring stories of people who've done incredible things. Some of them are walks, some of them are running and cycling, or people talking about kind of the impact of losing a loved one, a whole bunch of, and it's very colourful and beautiful. So that's obviously one of my favourite books. Always good to talk about your own. So hopefully that inspires you to kind of just think about things a little bit differently as you go out on your walk. Try and just be a little bit conscious that you're not just heading out for another daily walk, as some of us, and actually feel lifted and just think about something maybe a little bit different. If you want to join me on the 7-day soul walking, then just get in contact and I'll direct you in the right place, but it's over at soulhub.co.uk. I would love to have you there, and I will guide you as you walk and be there as a kind of mentor for any emotional kind of questions that come up. But yeah, just enjoy your time. Try and take it slowly. Try and give yourself that space, whether you've got a family or not. Just try and go out maybe on your own, and just really enjoy the time for yourself. Thank you so much for listening. My name's Carmen Rendell. Don't think I started with that. There you go. I'm a walking therapist and I'm based over in Richmond. And have a fabulous day, and I hope to speak to some of you soon. Take care. Bye.